Welcome to the Pagan Playground. This was kind of a request done by Persephone Rose, and I think all of you here on the YouTube Pagan community on Facebook have noticed this particular little suggestion, and being of that strange little niche of Christian turned to pagan, she kind of put forth some interesting points that we are to discuss. One of them is coming from a strong church background, and kind of how did you get from that to being pagan? And I have answered this kind of in various different videos. It wasn't like one day you're sitting in the pew going, "This sucks, I think I'll be pagan today." It doesn't necessarily work that way. I suppose some folk might be like, well, I'll try this, or I'll try that. You know, it's kind of something you have to experience to know whether it fits. As for me, I've been, well, I'll say since the 90s anyways, late 90s, however the hell long ago that's been, part of the church, so it's been a good chunk of my life. And at first, at that point, coming from a particular world, it was what I needed at the time. And, you know, you knew people, and, you know, the fact that I sort of inherited a family, you know, a lot of good had come from that community, and I still know these people. They're still parts of my, you know, they're still my family, you know. So, but as far as, like, the church and religious aspect as a whole, it's sort of accumulated over time. The different lunatics they would have for our pastors, one of them actually heard voices. So that was kind of like, okay, I'm crazy, but this is crazy. And it was just one thing on top of another, and it's like you would see this and you would try to say, you know, this ain't right, and of course they won't listen to you and you're the crazy one. And it was just so much crap with the people I was dealing with in that particular environment. And then I'm just got to the point, and this was over a few years I think, where I was in the pew and I'm like, okay, being the analytical type, I'm going to do an experiment. And this was with the latest crazy pastor. Not this one they got now, but the one that was there when I left. You know, I'm going to sit there during church, and I was listening to my iPod thing. Listening to, like, Marilyn Manson doing, you know, This Is Halloween and various music. Thinking, okay, if this isn't the right thing, God's going to say, you're doing a naughty thing, you know, I should feel something. Nothing. So I'm like, okay, it's official. I gotta get the hell out of here. So, there were so many other things where it was like I'd mentioned before, I was waiting for the rest of the story. It was the same thing year after year. You have, you know, the Christmas stuff at Advent, and then Pentecost at Easter, and it's like, la la la. I'm like, but there was like, where's the part of the story that includes me, just being a girl? You know, it's like, and then I, for one, like listening to history, you know, documentaries and things like that. And there's like, you have to realize the culture that it was in, how, and basically, the main thing was for me when I was pondering these things, why bother with females in general? And I'm talking from a Christian point of view. Because if God, you know, it's a man, God, man, male, doodah, why bother with chicks? On this planet right now, there are species that'll either change gender for procreation, I think seahorses do that, or they're asexual. So technically, if he's already got the system in place, why bother with the old-fashioned male-female? It's not necessary apparently. So it's like, well, it didn't make sense that it was just so male, heavily male. So it was just, there's so many, I felt like there was something not being told to me, and I just got fed up. So I'm sort of in limbo, not really in any spiritual sense, as it were. And this will most likely be a long-winded video. Brace yourself. So I'm in that sort of phase, and I end up reconnecting with a friend of mine on Facebook, as we all do. And I noticed on her thing, religion or whatever it was, Wiccan. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I'd known minimal stuff about it, but what I'd known was from various different media sources. So I asked her, it's like, well, as a practitioner, what is it? I know what media wants me to believe, I know what this wants me. As a person doing it, what is it? And she explained to me it was a, earth-based religion, and, what it is. And I'm like, well, where's the evil in this? I'm like, well, gee, really? We don't believe in Satan, da-da-da-da. I'm like, well, it intrigued me, basically. I'm like, well, okay, if this is what they're telling me, and this is the truth, I want to know more of the truth. So off to Bookland I go, and, from, like, the Kindle books, and I think they let me borrow, was it Grimoire for, like, the Green Witch or something like that? I can't remember. It was a thick book that I only kind of was able to glance through. But it intrigued me enough that I wanted to know more. And as I learned from different sources, I'm like, well, wait, this is pretty damn awesome. And one of the books was Teachings of an Outlaw Witch by Lady Kali Tara. And she went through pretty much everything ad mentum there, with like every finite detail, and I'm like, this feels right. This makes sense that I don't have to go to church. I can do this. I can have a relationship with deity on my own, in my own way, and to sort of have my own type of holidays, like with the Sabbats, that actually kind of mean something. That isn't commercialized, and that it just made sense. So I read this book, and I'm like, one Yule, that was like my first official Sabbat when I had my little teeny tiny handmade altar, which is now sitting over in the corner. And it was just this, like, and it was funny that being Yule, it was sort of a birth of something new, and it just felt right. And after reading the book, she had like an email at the end, so I contacted her with some questions, newbie, nosy, curious type Gemini that I am. And she totally flipped my point of view on, like, the Sabbats. On, how do you... It was like, do you keep your decorations from Sabbat to Sabbat? Was kind of my question. And she's like, well, if you have a birthday party, and it is a celebration, would you keep your birthday party decorations up till the next birthday? It's like, well, I guess not. So it was just... that just made me even more interested. And the more I kind of learned, the more I kind of tried, and I'm like, yes, as a loner, I like the not one-size-fits-all type of thing that Christianity tries to ram down your throat. And it doesn't work that way, just the fact that I'm a girl, So, that's kind of the progression that I had, and this is the second full turn of the wheel, but boy, this wheel's been turning really fast this year. Last year, I got to savor and kind of experience the Sabbats, and sort of take my time and enjoy them. It's like, by the time one Sabbat's done, you're ready for the next one. I'm like, what the hell just happened? Since when you're spring, brain fart, it's just been going. So, yes. So that's kind of my progression from church to here. And things just sort of fell into place, too. Where, like, I was going to try to find a wand. I was just looking for a place to find sticks, only to find a stick that was perfect for a wand, which I still use. It's like that type of stuff. The second thought, how did I transition into paganism utilizing multiple deities? Again, for me, God wasn't, or isn't, a single thing. Again, with the balance, it's like, there's always day and night. Up and down, there's a balance. So to me, there's always that feminine aspect. And the fact that I've dabbled in Egyptology since literally before I can remember, I've always been aware of multiple, pantheons. And for me, it is the Egyptian pantheon. And I've always related to the different gods, especially, Jehuti or Thoth, And they were more real to me in some sense than this vague Jehovah Abrahamic God, I guess is the concept. But I do still believe that Jesus was a real person, that those experiences at least were real. I mean, I'm thinking he was like a rock star. He must have been very charismatic. You know, I can, but my Jesus ain't like the church's Jesus, where he's very mellow and very like hippie like. On TV, he was doing the Sermon on the Mount, and whatever actor, I don't know what part the show was, I don't know who the actor was, but the actor got him like, that's my Jesus. He was funny and charming and relatable. This is a guy you'd want to hang out with, you know? It's like, that makes sense. He was like a fun Jesus, you know? So I don't deny he's based on reality, but as far as the bigger picture of deity as a whole, there was always that, like, part of the thing of there's got to be more to the story. It doesn't make sense. It's like, how would a male deity know to create female parts? You know what I mean? It's like, well, I feel creative today. Let's put the nads up top. It's like, I don't know. But then I'm an analytical person. I overthink things. Welcome aboard. The next thought is, how much time did it take? So like I said, I've been a churchy person most of my life. As far as like my family, we weren't churchy people. This was something I chose around later school years, which through different friends, or a friend to a friend to a friend, that type of thing. So quite a bit of time. It wasn't just poof. And then again, I do overthink things, so it's not like, well, let's see if I do this today. I don't work that way. Next thought. How did deity introduce themselves to you? I really don't know how to answer this one. It's not like not like that pastor who was hearing supposedly God verbatim, you will take the flag off of the altar, the American flag, by the way. And we're you know, there's like 18 churches in our town. You don't do that. And it pissed off a lot of people. If she wanted to put her country's flag with it, we had no problem with that. But it's like, why would God tell you to take them? It was screwed up. Anywho, they were nothing like that. Like I said, the Egyptian pantheon, and the fact that I've studied history in general, I've always been familiar with, but I've always connected with the Egyptian pantheon. I'm familiar with them. So they're representative of the greater whole. And as I was studying Wicca and paganism in general, I don't consider myself Wiccan, but I use that as a foundation. I consider myself eclectic pagan. As the male and female, it is, to me, the Lord and Lady, the two who are the one. In some ways, it is still a sort of a triad. The male and the female are two halves of a greater whole that I might not even be able to define. It's like the sentient universe represented in the male and the female. And then, kind of like how you have the creator god in the Egyptian pantheon, whose name escapes me, and then you had like the Ogadode, and then the Aeneid. You know, it's that sort of pyramid kind of structure. So, it didn't, I'm still, like, when I see videos of people interacting specifically with, like, maybe the Morgan, or, you know, with East or Isis, I don't have that experience with people. You know, I'm not wired for that sort of emotional interconnection. It's all analytical, so I don't quite do that with the gods, though I accept and understand that they kind of know that's how I'm wired. So it's a different skew for someone like me. And the last thought, how do you feel, how did you feel when you knew this was the right thing to do? How did I feel? Wrong kind of question to ask an analytical person, but it felt rainy, like a release. It was like, I've heard it kind of mentioned like there's a monsoon. I don't know if you can hear me now with the rain. It felt like kind of like coming home, but it felt comfortable, if that makes sense. I suppose you can kind of look at it like, in the Christian, especially near the end, you kind of felt like you're in a job you just couldn't stand, you know, that day-to-day grind, and it did feel like, it used to be when you went to church, you left feeling rejuvenated, or at least clean. Near the end, for me, it was like, you felt like, ew, you know, get it off. So that was kind of one of the first signs, like, okay, something not right here. But when I finally decided to go, okay, it just fit. It felt like when you come home after that kind of crappy job, and you take off your work clothes, and you put on your pajamas, and, you know, relax, and it just felt comfortable. It felt comfortable. And it still does, to the point where I can create this channel now and put myself out there. Though I'm still kind of in that in-between worlds where I'm hidden in plain sight. So it's like, you know, sometimes people will notice this and they'll kind of interact, and then it's like, you kind of like, well, don't be too obvious, because but then I'm like, I'm reading this on, like, Goodreads, so it's not terribly a surprise, but you don't quite admit it. Welcome to the world I live in, though I'm sure a lot of y'all are in that same position. But like I said, it's comfortable, but in some ways comforting, because when I cast circle and I create the elements, but invite the elements, I still feel kind of silly, because I feel like these are these, you know, important people, and I feel like such a doofus, but then I am not a group person, so Air, I think, understands. I always feel like he's always smiling to me, because it's like, I understand, we all do this, you know. So I do sense different traits in the elements, so when I kind of gather them together, it's like gathering friends, but you're still kind of the lesser among equals, if that makes sense. So I feel at this point in my life, it's exciting in some ways, comfortable. It just feels right. And the fact that I've got to meet so many meet vicariously through the interwebs, so many cool, interesting people. And that was like the last place I went as far as like information, where, you know, any schmuck can say anything on the internet. Of course, you could say that through books too. So I kind of traipsed delicately through different people on YouTube, and some of them are like love spells through this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, but then like Tiptoe Chick and Lady Grave Dancer and Romany's Realm and different other individuals, Sea Priestess, you know, people you feel know what they're talking about. You know, those are the people now I can kind of trust to, in Hellbound Heathen. And he's interesting because he does sort of call out the stupid of Christianity that I will admit is true. You know, just because you're doing your thing, don't shove it down somebody else's throat. You know, that's the thing that I feel actually embarrassed about. Now, I came from like a Methodism. We never, you know, go and say, you must be this, you know, you have to be saved, and just, we were never like obligated to do that. But it's still like, really, if they don't want to do it, just respect their decision. You know, just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. And then, you know, the Hellbound Heathen one's a message to Christian that I'm strangely in as the comic relief. Apparently everybody's all serious in that video, and here I am, the doofus. I'm like, had I known, I would have been a little more serious. But he puts out a really good point there, how that kind of world works. So I don't regret sort of jumping ship, as it were. It just, I got sick of just staring at that wall and not gaining anything from it. Though I don't, like, not, what I believe's the same, I just accept my point of view more. It's kind of hard to explain, but at 20 minutes I'm not going more into it. So here is my long-winded response to the coming from a Christian background into paganism response video by Persephone Rose. So thank you for watching, and blessed be.